My name is Jeff Ryzner, and this presentation is how to prepare for a career in technology management, or how I went from stamps to CEO, or do you really want to be the boss? All right, so I work with a company called Yoona Sleep Technologies, and we are a medical device company, primarily software, but we are also developing hardware for sleep medicine. Does anyone know what sleep apnea is? Anyone? No? Okay. So when you have this condition or other sleep disorders, you would go to a hospital. Here in Winnipeg, it would be the Misericordia, and they would hook you up with many sensors all over, and they're measuring your pulse, your breathing, your snoring, everything, and they ask you to go to sleep, and they basically take 8 hours of data from all of these sensors, and after the fact, a trained technologist has to spend about 2 hours going through 30-second segments of this data, and they're looking for events. And based on how they flag those events, a report is created for a physician who in turn diagnoses you with a sleep disorder and finds you the appropriate treatment. Our software that we have currently in the field takes that 2 hours and automatically scores that file, and it takes it down to about 2 minutes. And it does it with the accuracy of someone who's actually been scoring sleep studies for about 20 years. So we're having great success in the field, and I was asked to head up this company. So I'll tell you a little bit about how I got there and the journey. All right, so I graduated from Dakota Collegiate. I would say when I was in high school, I really had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I did not take business. I did not take computers. In fact, I don't really think, even though there were many programs available to me, I was absolutely directionless. All I knew is I wanted to do something creative and something that would help me regardless of where I ended up. So basically learning how to sell. So I went to Red River and I took a program called Creative Communications, and I majored in advertising. And advertising, I felt it could scratch the creative itch, and learning marketing and all this stuff, it didn't really matter what company I ended up at, I could probably help them out. So immediately following graduating from Red River, I did some advertising agency work. I did some solo contract work, went out into the world, tried to sell people campaign ideas, that type of thing. And I kind of stumbled into a position at the direct marketing center that Canada Post had at that time. Now, direct marketing is the ability to target people based on a demographic profile, so your age, your gender, that type of thing. Psychographic profiles, if any of that information is available, and basically sending targeted sales messages to them. The cool part about working with Canada Post is, as a Crown corporation, they had access to Stats Canada databases, and so you could pretty much find out anything you ever wanted to know about a community just based on a postal code. So it was amazing. They took the concept of junk mail and actually turned it into pretty big business. So I learned quite a bit there. Okay, this is where it all changes. So a friend of mine that I grew up with just down the street, who was a programmer, came to me and said, look, you've been spinning your wheels and doing some of this advertising and marketing stuff. Well, I work for a software company, and they're expanding, and they've got some money to do that, but they really don't know how to expand into the States, and they don't know how to build their sales department other than hiring more salespeople. So why don't you come in and try and help out? And I said, sure, that sounds like fun. The advantage here too is when you're not doing service work, widespread service work, you actually have more control over the experiment, so to speak. You can send out targeted messages and actually measure whether or not they're working and how to tweak them so that you're getting a return on investment for everything that you put out there. So I signed on, and I was a marketing department of one in a young software company. So I was applying everything that I had learned. Things were going well. I spent a lot of time with the sales department, but slowly I wanted to move around and learn more about software. So as I said in the title, I started with stamps. I was licking stamps like every day for this company. It was like, it seemed like I was in the mailroom. That's all I really did. Is our mantra back then was letter, call, demo, close. And that's how we grew that company from 3 people to about 23 in a very short period of time. The advantage of a small technology company, lateral movement. So, you know, if you feel that you've kind of hit the ceiling in one particular area, I really wasn't going to go any higher in a marketing department of one when I was that person. So I jumped into sales, and I got to travel the country, and I got to see how my marketing was, you know, helping sales directly. And from sales, I jumped over and tried some support. Then I jumped into the development department and did a little bit of development. Now, I wasn't trained to do any of this, but in a small company, you know, your assets are your people, and there's a great interest in investing in those people. So they gave me the opportunity to try everything. I ended up at the end of that being a project manager inside of the development team, and I actually took a course at Red River to ramp up my skills in that area, and eventually I was head of that department. So we had a development team of about 15 developers. We had 3 different projects going simultaneously, and I was basically accountable for reporting on the status of each one of those. You know, when is this build going into quality assurance? Can we release this to customers? Can we do that? And so it really prepared me for larger management jobs. So I was just accountable for anything coming out of that department. Things were going great. When all of a sudden, boom. Okay, under the financial pressure of rapid expansion, the 2 partners that owned this company just started butting heads constantly. And they realized that they were going to take the company down if they kept fighting. And unfortunately, my business mentor, the person that was helping me out and letting me try everything, he was bought out of the company. And along with him, my position was terminated. So I was on the street. I was on unemployment insurance, sitting there thinking, okay, well, I'm never going to find another job like this in Winnipeg. There's absolutely no way. I don't, you know, most software companies in this area are much larger than the one I was working at the time. So what am I going to do? So I was talking to one of the developers that I worked quite closely with at the old company, and we decided to start our own. We knew a lot about the marketplace, and because I had done time in the field and I had spent time in all of the other departments, I felt that, you know, as long as I had a really good programmer, we could get something out to the market. And strategically, we decided to align ourselves with the largest customer we had, and they decided to invest as well. And in the end, within 6 months, we bought the other company back. Okay, it was a fantastic journey and a stressful one, and I was working, I'd say probably 80-hour weeks, but it was very rewarding. Okay, so you're going to face this many times in your life where you're working at the same career for a long period of time, and for me, there came a time probably about 6 years later where I felt like every single person that was in North America that was doing work in my field at that time, I knew them by first name. And I just felt that, I wasn't excited about going to work anymore. I wasn't excited about selling anymore. Not even bringing, new innovation to the marketplace, because I just done this in the exact same place for so many years. So I opted to take a buyout. And that allowed me opportunities to explore the Manitoba tech sector. And I worked with the ICT Association of Manitoba and with the Eureka Project, which is the technology incubator on the campus of U of M. And basically, it allowed me to work with like 30 companies at the exact same time, all doing completely different technology. And, you know, I was just noticing that all of the skills I had built up with my previous experience were 100% transferable to any technology. And so it was a natural progression that one of the companies I was working with during this phase would offer me a job, and I took it, and it was to become CEO of Yoona Sleep Technologies. Okay, but enough about me. What's the job like? Are you really the boss? Okay, put your hand up if you think that being the CEO means you're the boss. Okay, you're much wiser than the crowd I had yesterday. Okay, the CEO is not the boss. If the CEO was really the boss, Steve Jobs never would have got fired from Apple so many years ago. Okay, you always serve someone, and in business, you're primarily serving the money. And the money can take the form of the shareholders. It can take the shape of your board and various other parties. But if you are not the only investor in your company, you're never really the boss. So being the CEO of your own company is one thing, but it's an honor when somebody else asks you to look after their baby for them. Okay, what is it like to be CEO? Some days you're a strategist, an analyst, a salesperson, and a peacemaker. I say peacemaker because ultimately you are straddling so many different departments, and sometimes those departments perceive themselves to be in conflict with other departments in that company. Even though you're all pulling on the exact same rope, sometimes you're the only person in that company that understands that. Every day you are a communicator and a translator, a decision maker, a project manager, and a leader. I'll talk about leadership in just a minute, but the communication part of this, I cannot stress enough. The translator. So when you're talking to an investor, there's a really good chance that if you allowed your scientists to speak directly to your investors, they wouldn't understand each other at all. So you are in the middle, you know, taking the science in this side and explaining it in a way that your investors understand. Okay, a day in the life of a CEO. I was asked to do this on the outline of the presentation. It was kind of funny. So I just wrote down, you know, what my week looked like, and this is the way the slide turned out. So on a good day, you're developing, reviewing, and executing strategic plans. Those strategic plans could be for specific departments. It could be for an all-encompassing plan. Regardless, you know, if you're not actually measuring that plan, altering that plan, controlling that plan, they're pretty much useless, you know, if they're not living. So if you write a plan, 2 months later in technology, that whole landscape could have changed. The people could have changed. Everything could have changed. So after you do some of that, you probably have a meeting with your developers, a meeting with IT, meeting with support, meeting with quality assurance, meeting with sales and marketing, meeting with human resources if you're hiring people, meeting with operations, meeting with finance, meeting with investors, meeting with customers. I can't stress that one enough because your company and how it's valued in a marketplace, all of that is, that position in the marketplace is totally in the mind of your customer. Meeting with strategic partners, meeting with the board of directors, and traveling, if you're lucky, to do some of these meetings. So if you hate meetings, this is the worst job for you that you could ever have. Okay, traits and raw talents. Great leaders are accountable. There's a trend, you know, in your lifetimes, you're probably going to have a boss or two bosses or three bosses who are, you know, I affectionately call Teflon bosses, where no matter what happens, it slides off of them and it's your fault, even though they're the ones that are making the decision. And it's really hard to pull people together and align them in a direction and you be the decision maker on where that's going to go if you're not willing to take the blame if it goes wrong. So being accountable is a way of earning respect from all of your employees. Decision makers. Okay, there are people that function solely on gut feelings. I think that, in technology, we like to use data. And this is it. If you are uncomfortable making decisions, not just for yourself, but for an entire company, everyone who, all of those families relying on those paychecks, this is not the job for you. Ultimately, this is your responsibility. You have great people working for you, and the data comes up, and you're accountable for that decision. Even if you allow someone to make the decision based on the data, you've made the decision to allow them to make the decision. So ultimately, this is you. Problem solvers. This is your job. And are you a logical problem solver? Are you a predictable problem solver? Are you headed in a direction where you can determine what best practices are? That tends to make people very comfortable because they can probably guess how you're going to decide on any given issue. You're not just emotionally saying something in a boardroom. Adaptable, ready to pivot. Risk takers. In technology and business, when we talk about risk, it's not, like walking on a tightrope. Risk is something that we control to a great extent, and we base everyday decisions on percentages of risk and have those risks been identified. People make their careers just identifying risks for any given way that you might go on an issue. Trustworthy and trusting. If you don't know how to delegate, you have a company of one. It doesn't matter how many employees you have. You have to be a communicator. Good leaders are competitive. They're passionate. And they're learners. And rarely the smartest person in the company. And that's the truth. Okay? In fact, if you are the head of a company and you find yourself, well, I'm the best salesperson, well, I'm the best programmer, or I'm the best engineer, okay? You've pretty much failed and you've crippled your company. Okay? You want experts in all of these areas. I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, the person that heads up my QA department, they will always know more about that, and I trust them inherently on any issue that faces that department. And enterprising, okay? At the end of the day, you have to know you're in business to make money, and everyone's relying on you to make money. And so when you're weighing business decisions, you need to find a way to make money, and sometimes more money. Can you learn leadership? Okay. This is a subject of great debate. And personally, I think there's a lot of courses out there that you can take that will help you hone your skills. But a lot of this is going to come from your experience in the field, working, sometimes even recreational activities, that put you in a leadership position like team sports. That helps a lot too. And in fact, that's probably what's driving you forward as a leader. And the rest of these things will just help you become a better one. So skills and schooling. Okay, so in high school, unlike me, I highly suggest that you grab some business, accounting, computer science and IT, advertising, anything that's going to help you sell, anything that's going to help you have domain knowledge in a field of science. And anything that will just help you take a business report apart and understand it. Postsecondary, same thing, business, finance, marketing. Digital marketing, I separated this because most marketing courses that I've taken, the digital side of this is traditionally weak. I found that third-party organizations like the Canadian Marketing Association or even Google themselves, they can teach you so much more about digital marketing in less time. And it's critical that you learn this stuff. Project management, I can't stress that enough. That helped me so much. It's basically taking chaos and a whole bunch of information, creating a plan and aligning people and making the magic happen on time and on budget. That is a huge step in the right direction. General domain knowledge. So that, when I was talking about computer science and IT, that could mean, becoming an engineer. That could mean, the reason that this is important is when I talked about being the translator, where you're sitting between departments and you're trying to explain to sales and marketing what's actually going on in development. If you have domain knowledge of programming, the programmers will understand you, and there'll be a respect there, and it helps with the translation. Okay, believe it or not, the other I put a lot of weight on, because these are all activities that you probably can do in your spare time that will really push you forward as a leader. So your junior achievement, debating, Toastmasters, peer support. In my high school, they had a pilot program that was basically a peer counseling program. And while it sounds like it has nothing to do with what we're talking about here today, the one thing that they taught me how to do was empathetic listening. Okay, it was the ability to, I use this today, probably every day, when I sit in a boardroom and someone is saying something and there's a massive conflict on the table. Okay, and what this allowed me to do is strip the emotion out of the words, determine what the motive is here, like what are they really concerned about, and putting it on the table, making them feel that I've understood them, and finding a solution for everybody. So anything like conflict resolution that you can pick up now, that's huge for management in the future. There's a lot of great entrepreneurial magazines, a lot of great articles. Those are techniques that you could put to work right away. Volunteer work, team sports, team anything that puts you in a group of people that are, perhaps hard to work with, but you've got to make something happen. That's what it's all about. Okay, a quick note on being mentored and mentoring. It's probably the most rewarding thing I've ever done. When you get into your first big business, find someone that you respect, ask them how they got where they got to, and ask them for advice on a regular basis. People inherently, I believe anyways,